Oh, we got a good one for you today, my friends. I know we have two today, I guess. We got another one for you today, my friends, here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I am your host, Dan Vespers. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Vespers, and you can follow my new network at Old Man Squad, and it'll follow you back. It will follow you back. Please take a moment here at the outset to like, rate, and subscribe. All those little likes and subscriptions you guys do moves it into the algorithm on whatever website you're talking about. YouTube, Apple, Spotify. It will become a suggested pod, and then people will be like, oh, there's Dan. I remember Dan. He's a weird-looking dude, but I like the way he thinks about fantasy sports, and you guys can obviously help with that by just a quick couple clicks of the mouse button, and off we roll. Today, we will be joined by, yes, indeed, Josh Lloyd of LockedOn Fantasy Basketball and Basketball Monster. We had a plan, and then we had to make a new plan, and I'll explain about that once we get the interview with Josh going. That is a pre-recorded interview that will drop in here in just a matter of moments. Coming up over the weekend, just as a look ahead before we fire up today's main course, hoping to get some team previews over the next couple of days. If the Yahoo board adjusts, we will focus on that as well. There's a million things to cover and about 65 days to cover them in. Without further ado, Josh Lloyd. You asked for him. You got him.
No one asked for it, Dan. No one. Come on, don't lie. Don't lie.
Yeah, I just meant mostly to yell at you, but you know, whatever works. He is Josh Lloyd, Red Rock _bball, the pride of LockedOn Fantasy Basketball, a basketball monster of your nightmares. Josh, how are you today, my good man?
I'm pretty good, Dan. I'm pretty good. Nice early Saturday morning here. Went down, got a coffee ready, and I'm ready to talk whatever it is we're talking about.
Yeah, could be anything. Could be anything at all. Happy weekend to you. Yeah, thank you for carving out time on a weekend morning. This is still my middle of my Friday afternoon over here.
Very, very easy to do. Very happy to do it, Dan.
You the man. So the plan was, grand plans though they may be, to talk about the Yahoo board. But then we had a show with Dan Titus yesterday, and he informed me that the board is likely to change either later today or tomorrow. So it seemed a bit of an idiotic idea to have you, Josh, on the show and talk about a board that won't exist by the time the podcast airs. So instead, you hosted a 9-cap mock draft yesterday. I finally, for the first time in I don't know how many eons, was actually in front of my computer at the time the draft was going on and was able to slide in there. So now I figured we could just go through our teams and either laugh, embrace, yell at one another for 20 some odd minutes. Sound okay?
It's good with me.
Delightful. I had the first pick. You had the third. I'm going to throw it up on the screen. It's going to be hard for people to see, so I'll do my best to zoom in here as we're going. There we go. And we're near one another, so this does make it actually, that's convenient. We'll go big. Go big or go home. I know it's my remedial video technology skills here, but we got it on the board. It's working. First round. Actually, you know what? I don't know if I've asked you about this. Are you going Jokic or Wemby first?
Sloan asked me something for the Sporting News fantasy preview. That question, I said, look, I probably go with Wemby, but I also don't think it's a gigantic deal. And if I had multiple leagues, I just 50-50 it. Like, I think it's that sort of situation where my projections have Wemby on top, but that doesn't mean that I feel as confident in that being what's going to happen. But I just think, again, whichever one you get, like you're in pretty good spot, and toss a coin, see what you like. I don't have a really clear lean on that at this point.
Yeah, you know, it's I know you walk through this gauntlet literally every moment of every day. When you put one person ahead of another person, what everybody hears is they hate the one that host puts second. We don't hate the other one. I guess my only thought there is, and I'm wondering your opinion on this as well, with obviously Wembanyama is nuts and everything he's going to be doing. He's going to be breaking fantasy in the next couple of years, if not already. How do you feel about the fact that a lot of what he does is tied up in that extraordinary block number?
Yeah, that's something I've talked about for years, Dan, is that like these players who have outlier single categories that really float what they do, you've got to be really cautious because you lose 10% of an outlier number, and then you drop 40 spots, 30 spots, right? My exception on Wemby is that he is likely to be so far ahead in that block category that if it, like, let's, for example, again, I know this sounds stupid, but what if he averages 4.5 blocks a game, right? I
Did it
know
for half
that
a year.
exactly. Like, it sounds stupid, right? But it's not. And he loses 10%. All right. So he averages what, 3.9? Like, that's still going to be like 1.5 blocks, probably better than everybody else. Again, he would need to cut his block production in half to come back to be second in blocks. Like, that's the sort of like level we're talking. Whereas other guys in the past who have been at like 2.9 blocks or 2.1 steals or wherever it is, and then they go from 2.1 to 1.8 steals, and then they go from first to seventh, and it's a big deal. And you go from 2.9 blocks. I'm looking at you, Jaren Jackson or Miles Turner in the past, or whoever. You go from 2.9 to 2.1, and you go from first and ahead of everybody, and then you are fourth or sixth, which is good, but it's not sitting above everybody else. But if you're Wemby and you go from first down to first and still got room to go down again and still be first, that sort of puts that aside to me. That's the difference with that, like difference in the outlier block, field goal percentage, steal sort of a player, is that he's got such a big buffer that I think it's okay.
You ended up taking Luka, by the way. Wemby was not your pick. I know I got sidetracked there. Katrin got Wemby. You had the third pick. This draft was done moments before the Mavericks playoff schedule was released. I know you tweeted about this as well. Would you still go Luka at 3, knowing that the Mavs have a 2-game playoff week? Because Luka's pretty damn good.
I talked about this as I was making the pick, and I said last year I was very down on taking Luka this high, because he hadn't shown the full improvement in his free throws, but that wasn't it. It was like, I don't want someone in the first 4 picks when I think there's an equivalent player there who's going to have 2 games in the playoffs. But that was last year, and I don't know the schedule. We'll see what happens. Then, of course, I take 2 Mavericks for my first 2 picks, and they got a 2-game week in the exact same week again. So the question then comes to it, like, and I tracked this last year as well, because again, people got on me about saying I wouldn't take Luka at this spot last year because of the 2-game weeks. I wanted to see what he did, and I believe he was the 28th best player in that week for a points league and like 44th or something for a category league, which as your first round player is not good enough. I don't think, for 2 games. And you also run the risk that, what if he misses one of those? Then it's a 1-game week. Then you're cooked, right? If you're a 4-game week and you miss one, you're 3. If you're 3, you're 2. It's not great. So at that spot, I guess my problem is the guy that's likely to be at 4 is Shea, and I'm a little bit down on Shea this season. So I'm not really sure what I would do there. I don't think I would take Luka at 3. That 2-game week, I guess the difference I would say there, Dan, is if I'm playing Yahoo default, which you should not, that's the first week of your playoffs. And if you're actually good enough and you strive for it and get a bye, it doesn't matter. But if you've got any other sort of playoff setting, then I don't think you can do it.
And you and I actually agree on the Shea thing. We've both talked about this a little bit on shows, that the second half of last year, he was more like the 7th, 8th ranked player in fantasy on a team that continues to get better around him. But is there really anybody else you could take instead of Luka besides Shea there? Aren't you kind of screwed a little bit?
That's where you get to the problem. Someone said, "Oh, I might go Anthony Davis." I went, yeah, but I'm not going to take Embiid there. Tell you now, I'm not doing that. And what else do you do in that spot? Like that does become the problem. Where when I talked Luka with this last season, again, we only just found this out yesterday, so I haven't really dug deep into it. And it's August the 17th, so we've got a bit of time to talk about it. But when I looked at it last year, I looked at it and went, all right, I'm not saying I'm not going to take Luka in the first round, because there's going to be a clear delineation spot where it's pointless to make that decision. But when there's people that are close by, then yeah, I will like go somewhere else. But I'm not sure there's going to be someone that's close by this year. So maybe I do end up taking him at 3. Like, look at Shea, AD, or maybe I take Giannis, honestly. Maybe Giannis is the guy that we go there. Like, I'm not going to do, I'm looking through the first round of this draft. Giannis went at 6, Halliburton at 7, Tatum at 8. Not doing Halliburton, not doing Tatum, not doing Embiid, not doing Durant, not doing Trae Young, not doing Steph. Like, shit, it's probably, I either swallow that and take Shea, which I'm not, for many reasons, I'm not that super into it, or maybe I just take Giannis. And the Bucks is putting a playoff schedule, because the Bucks have an awesome playoff schedule, Dan, that I think every one of their games through fantasy playoffs is on. They have no games on high volume days through the fantasy playoffs.
That's delightful.
Even though they might have like 11 games versus 12, they've got none on the higher volume days, which is interesting. And they've got the most lower volume day games of anybody in the league by like a margin of 5. So they have that
Yeesh.
real cushy, like we're playing, we're not playing 11-game Wednesdays, we're not playing 12-game Fridays. So they've got the best. So maybe it's him.
Yeah, you know what's funny is the more that I stare at that pack behind Giannis of Halliburton, Tatum, Embiid, Durant, Trey, Curry, Donovan Mitchell, Sabonis, Ant, Booker, the more I'm starting to think this might be the first year I punt free throws in a very long time and go Giannis at that spot. For many years I've said I don't want to go the Giannis route because effectively you sort of lock yourself in. It's possible that he has a year where he comes back a little.
You know what I want to say about that? Actually, before I say that, Dan, I have to remind you because I listen to your show. You got to remember to leave a space for an ad break. So you want to do that now? Leave that. Let's leave the space, and then we'll come back for my thoughts on Giannis's free throw right after this. We good? That work
yeah,
well?
you're better. You're better.
All right. So Dan Titus took Giannis, right?
Yeah,
and I'm taking a look at Dan's team, and this is again using my projections with the team he's got. His team's overall free throws came out to 78.3%. I went, what is going on? And it's not because I've got Giannis projected to be a good free throw shooter, because I don't, because he's not. Like I've got him at 64% on 9 attempts, but I've got the team coming out at 78.3, which is that is not meaning you are losing that category every week. So, and I did a lot of work on this last year as well, actually putting the numbers in, because this idea where you have Giannis, you lose free throws this week, and I just don't believe that's true. You have to be sort of cautious around how you do it, but you don't automatically lose it, and Dan's team is not going to automatically lose it with who he drafted.
It looks at a glance, and I'm just sort of like quick flipping through, it doesn't look like he has another foul shooter on that team who's worse than about 79%. So that's correct. A good way to do it.
Yeah, but not many high volume guys though.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of like 2 and 3 attempts per game sort of players, but like 80, 79, 81, 84.
Yeah.
But say, let's say Lillard, like 89 guy on 7 attempts. Doesn't have any of those guys to balance it out.
So I think this is a situation where my brain constantly goes to the roto side, where if you have Giannis, you're probably going to be bottom 2 or 3 in free throws. But that's different than head to head because of those weekly variations where you might get a Giannis week where he shoots 82% for a week and then shoots 40 the following week, where you're doomed. Yep. You're going to lose that week. But the one where he shoots 80, you got a pretty good shot to win it. He'll probably do the 40 side a little bit more. I mean, this is a very hyperbolic, an exaggeration of what it would be, but like over an entire year in roto, you pile all that up, you're probably only getting 2-3 at best roto points, where in head to head, maybe you go like 7 and 13 in a 20-game regular season or something along those lines. But don't you have to be pretty damn careful? Like if you take even one more bad foul shooter, aren't you kind of cooked at that point?
That does become the risk, but I think the idea and the strategy in that, in a head-to-head sort of sitting, as we're just not discussing our teams at all, we're discussing everything else. But,
sorry, Dan.
But like when you do that and you've got Giannis, you sit there and go, he's a bad free throw shooter. I might lose free throws, right? Which is okay. But you could take one wrong turn and you lose it, and you go, yeah, that's all right, because I've built everything to be strong in the other areas. And then if I win it half the time, that's free money. That's just a bonus. That's free real estate. Like that's not something that you are banking on, because it's just sort of sitting at that level. It does not, again, I know I've stressed this for years as well, and I know you say this as well, Dan, is that if you're punting a category, you're not deliberately making it bad, right? You're not like, I got Giannis, so let's find every terrible free throw guy and we've got to pile them up. We've got to make sure our team shoots 52% from the line. It's not what you want to do.
Yeah,
no. You say, I don't actually care what happens here. Like you can make an effort to make it stronger, but whatever. So if you get a win in it, it's a bonus. And if you don't, well, who cares?
Yeah, didn't care anyway. You're right. We haven't much talked about our own teams. We can pivot back into that now. Whatever, things come up. But you know, with my show, we just like to go wherever the hell the show goes. You already told everybody who you got with your second round pick. That was Kyrie Irving, a fellow Maverick. Again, before we saw the schedule, my take this year is I don't want Kyrie before 20, just because he tends to miss about 20 ball games. Yep. Roto, not as big of a deal with the games cap. Head-to-head small playoff week, is this one you would have taken back now?
Yeah, there's no chance I was taking Kyrie at that spot, especially after taking Luka. But yeah, again, it's about who's similar around that area. And I think we all you referenced this earlier in the start of the show about, you rank one guy 10 and the other guy 11. It doesn't mean that the guy is better than the guy that's 11. And I'm going to be doing some work around this over the coming days as well. But like at that spot, which pick what, 22, there's maybe 6 other guys I could have considered there. And I went with Kyrie. I liked it's sort of a handcuff. But if Luka misses, like Kyrie just pushes up 4 or 5 spots for that period of time as well, while having that level of value on his own. Right. So he's already got that base value, but it can go higher. But with the playoff thing, I would have taken Lillard, who you grabbed, or I would have. I might have taken Paul George at that spot. Like there's a number of different ways I could have gone at that position, and it wouldn't have been Kyrie.
Yeah, I went Dame at 24. I felt very fortunate that LeBron went off before. For me, like with Dame and not, it sounded like he was a player you were considering as well there. Yep. Even if he gets a tiny bit worse, he's still Dame. The floor is so high, and the second round has been such a poop show over the years that like, well, maybe Dame shoots 44% instead of 42. I don't know. That's a pretty easy number to get back to, and that's how he climbs halfway up the round. I
did a show talking Bucks with the Locked On Bucks host. It's not out yet, but it'll be out in a day or two. And we talked about Lillard, and the general consensus, Dan, and especially from a fantasy perspective, is that he was pretty disappointing. Yeah. But he was an all-star starter, and rightfully so. Like I think he was like the 10th best player around coming into that all-star voting period for fantasy, which is like literally bang on where you want him to be. He just had a stinking stretch down the end of the season. Like he just was terrible from about that mid to late January period onwards. And is that like a permanent decline? I don't know. But it wasn't that he was just like, man, he got to Milwaukee and he sucks, because he wasn't. He was fine. He wasn't absolutely elite Dame, but he's also not that far off some of the numbers he'd put up 3 years ago. Like they're not that different. And a lot of it was brought down by a really terrible sort of January, February, March stretch.
Third round, I went Markkanen at 25. You went Van Vliet at 27. I love your Freddie pick. Everybody knows how much I love Fred Van Vliet. Everybody else seems to hate him. I don't know why. He was a second rounder last year and just sort of barreled through the season despite being drafted near 40. And he's going close to 40 in a lot of drafts I've seen anyway. I am fully aware that my Markkanen pick has a lot of risk associated with it. I'll be honest, I don't really know if Utah's going to end up trying to compete at the end of the season or not. It doesn't look like it. But everybody's like, Lowry's not going to play more than 55 games. I'm like, dude, they tanked 2 years ago and he played 66 games. So it feels like somewhere in between there is reasonable. And, he's a high per game dude. So I don't know. I felt okay with it. Van Vliet, Paul George were probably the other 2 guys I was looking at in that range. Honest to God, I don't know why I went Markkanen over those guys. I think I just like the fact that he could be a top 15 per game dude. What do you think about our 2 guys in the third round?
I'll talk Markkanen. I think there is significant fake injury risk for him, as there has been the last 2 years. I guess the worry then is, what if there's actually a real injury that happens earlier in the season, and then you're in some real trouble. But the team hasn't significantly improved. It's going to take stuff away from him. I'm not really sure where he gets better, but there's no one coming in to take stuff away. So it's relatively solid. It's a pick that in Roto, Dan, you make that pick every day of the week, right? That's totally fine there. In head-to-head, it is a little bit more risky, but you're in that say good/bad spot of being at the turn, is that you pick there, and then you might as well go have a snooze, because you're coming back in 24 picks. Like you're not in that spot where you go, well, maybe I'll get someone else that's equivalent next pick. Like you're not doing that. So like if you believe in him and you believe in him more than that, like I wouldn't have picked him there. Like would I have picked him at my spot? Debatable, maybe at 27. Maybe I think I'd like him more around 30, 31, but whatever, because there's not that many teams I think that have that size risk in there, who have absolutely demonstrated to us that they have no shame, rightfully so, in sitting their guys to secure a better draft pick. In fact, they probably in those last 2 seasons should have done it earlier, so they could have got a higher pick. But they will do it, and we've seen that.
What about Freddie? Why'd you like Freddie so much?
I just, like, I don't know what the thing is with him, why people don't like him. I remember getting into an argument last year where someone said, no, he's like their 4th best player. I go, bro, like, come on.
No.
Come on, like let's literally be serious here. Like I know Şengün was really good, but Van Vliet was at least 1B on that team, and his fantasy value was number 1 very clearly. I don't like he's not losing. Someone said they'll trade him away mid-season. No, that they won't. That is just no way that's going to happen. He's not losing minutes to Reed Shepherd. I don't think he's losing minutes to Amen Thompson. I don't really know what's changing. And the good thing about Van Vliet is we can look what he did last year. He doesn't need gigantic usage to be a very good fantasy player. And look, at some point, he's a short point guard who's getting older. It will fall away. But I'm okay. Like, I probably wouldn't have taken Fred in round 2 because I don't know if there's any sort of way to go up from there. But like at that spot there, it's hard for me to see him going down. And maybe he does jump a little bit. But I just like him. He's a cool player.
4th round, you went Jaylen Brown. I went Jamal Murray. I can give my own reasoning on this one. I like that Denver had a longer offseason. That's basically the short of it for me. Jamal Murray.
Jamal didn't, though.
I guess that's true. He played a little bit. But,
he tried to play. I don't know what that was that we saw in Paris, but he was definitely in a uniform.
He was in a uniform. I'm not as concerned as others. I know he had I faded him this last season off the title run, which I tend to do with teams off of titles, and I think you do as well to some degree. Although you have a Celtic on your team right here, so we'll get into that in a minute. But I was watching your show and you were talking about how you didn't really want Tatum early. You didn't want. I think Drew Holiday was in there because he also had the Olympic run on top of the title run. I just think there's a little bit of a chip on the shoulder for Nuggets this season after they got knocked out early. And Jamal Murray was a 30-something per game dude this last year that I just got at 48. Jaylen Brown, this is around where I took him last year, and then he pooped himself in free throw percentage. That went hard the wrong direction. Everything else was pretty good for him. Is this you assuming that comes back a little bit, or do you not even really care?
I'm not really sure I care massively about it. I think maybe, look, he's had a history of being never great at it, but better than he was last season. So maybe it bounces back. I don't know. I don't know if is he going to Wiggins? Is he going to Westbrook and just become a terrible free throw shooter permanently? I don't know. I'm not sure how that's going to go. But at that spot, I think it's okay. Now, the thing that I find interesting about feedback that I get on these drafts is people, man, Jaylen Brown, there's no way he goes that late in a competitive draft. I'm like, okay.
Really?
Yeah. Someone was telling me they would have taken him where I took Van Vliet at 27. I go, I would never do that. And I don't think I would ever see that happen in any sort of category. But there are clearly varying opinions on where Jaylen Brown should go. Like if he went at 54 or 55, I go, that makes sense as well. I think this is about the right spot. I actually don't have a huge amount to comment on him. I think the Celtics are going to be hyper aggressive with resting guys once more, like they were for the last 3 months of last season. But I'm okay with him here. I don't think there's a huge way that he slides massively from here. And I don't think he's going to jump up massively either.
Do you think I soiled myself with my Murray and Gobert at 48 and 49? Or are those okay?
Nah, it's fine. Like I think it's totally okay. Like the Gobert one, there'll be people who don't really understand what the value is, and it's okay. I think he's bang on. I would, if I was ideally looking at it, I probably would have said Gobert maybe goes the end of round 5. But again, you're not in that position to get him. And the one thing I noticed, Dan, is that like the centers were gone. Like they were disappearing real quick in this area of the draft. They came back with a run of about 7 centers in 12 picks in like round 10 or whatever it was. But there was no one around this area. And I was like, man, I need to get some centers. So I probably went a little bit early in one of my picks coming out later because there's just no one around in that area. And I did consider Gobert where I took Jaylen. Okay, I think that probably is too early. But then you took him 4 picks later.
Yeah, then you just doomed. And at this point, I have a Lillard, Markin, and Murray free throw buffer, so I wasn't too worried about what Gobert was going to crap on. You went, and we got to stop and talk about this one. You went Tobias Harris at pick 51, and you have been hearing it ever since. But everybody that watches my show knows how much I talk about Tobias Harris. He's effectively the Old Man Squad logo. He was in the 40s last year in what was pretty much a bad season for him in Philadelphia. Why do you think? Is it just that people love to hate Tobias Harris? Like, what's everybody's problem? Is it just that they wanted you to get more value out of him and take him around later, or do people just not want him at all?
I think you covered most of those things. People say you could have waited until round 7 to get him. I go, maybe, but part of my plan, which I talked about when I did this, was like it wasn't about like I'm not referencing Yahoo ADPs here. We're against these other people who have their own opinions and ideas. So I'm basically just coming out and saying, well, I think this guy's fine in this area, so I'm just going to take him. I'm not going to try and play the waiting game on ADPs and see if he falls 2 more rounds and then grab that extreme value. That's not what I'm trying to do in this draft. So, yeah, maybe he could have slid to me in another spot, but when I looked at how I was valuing him, he seemed about right in this area. and I'm okay with that. Like, again, maybe I'll squeeze more of it. There are people that hate him. And I'll be honest with you, I don't like Tobias Harris as a player. And I thought that he was really, really bad at stretches last season. I thought that there were times where he was terrible, right? But people go, well, yeah, someone commented to you and me on this, I think yesterday, I said, well, what's different this year to last year? He plays for a different team that doesn't have Joel Embiid on it and doesn't have Tyrese Maxey on it. And it's got like Cade Cunningham, who's I like, but he's not taking the ball like Maxey and Embiid did. And I don't expect Harris to be awesome, but he's got this ability to just be sort of mid across the board. You bump that up a little bit from where he was last year. I think it's reasonable. But again, if you can get him in the 70s, do it. Like that is the idea of it. But I didn't think I was going to have that ability here, but it also wasn't the purpose of what I was doing. I wasn't trying to squeeze everything out. I was more just like giving an idea of where am I valuing these guys?
Maybe you would have gotten him in the 6th. I can promise you wouldn't have gotten him in the 7th. Because I would have taken him between your 6th and 7th round picks.
I'm sure you would have.
Yeah. We both went centers in the 6th round, and I'm sure people have issues with both of them. You went Isaiah Hartenstein that's pick 70. I went Mark Williams at 72. That is everybody's least favorite pick I made because Mark Williams was doubtful for 62 games last year. Did not play in any of them. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I also can't imagine that crap happens again. In any event, I probably wouldn't do this if this wasn't a mock draft. I'm not super into Mark Williams, but I don't think it could go a whole lot worse. Hartenstein, I am curious. I don't think you and I have talked about number of minutes you think he gets. I think I'm settling somewhere in the 24 to 26 range. Where are you at with Isaiah?
Yeah, it's about that area. I think I said this when I picked him in the show. I said, like, if he gets 25, like I'm okay with picking him here. If he gets more, like, okay, again, that's just extra value. Like, what if he plays 28? Then he'll bet this number without any. And we also have to remember, this is not an 11% usage center. He is when he plays for Tibbs because everybody is, right? But he's not. That is not who he is as a player. So, like, that's not going to stay at that like 11.9% that he was last season. And if he goes from 25 to 27 minutes and goes from 11.9 to 14% usage or whatever it is, I'm okay with him there. And after you took Williams, like, the next center off the board was 2.5 rounds later, I think, and it was Yusuf Nurkic. And I think it's a pretty big drop off there.
That is a huge jump. I don't think I even realized that, but yeah, there wasn't a single center that went in the 7th round.
I'm basing that off the color coding here. So I'm going to have a look. Sometimes they put centers as power forward. So I'm just going to double check. There is, I guess you could make the argument with Jabari Smith that he's not a center. He's a power forward. He plays power forward the whole time. So
yeah, it really is.
The next center literally was Yusuf Nurkic at whatever number pick that is, round 8, number 6.
90? Is that 90?
Let me just quick maths that off the top of my head. Is it?
I think
no, it's after that. At round 8. Oh, no, it's not. Yeah, it's 90. Yeah, 90 is right.
There we go.
I actually don't care anymore. I think it's about right. Yeah, 90. No, not 90 is right. 90 is right.
Yeah, and then there was a few. Then there were like 5 that went over the next 10 picks or something like that.
There was Nurkic, Pirtle, Valanciunas, Zubats, Kessler, Capella, Lively, Okongwu in the next like 16 picks.
3 straight in a row there. The Capella, Lively, Okongwu.
Well, and Gafford as well in there, so who they've labeled as a power forward for some God knows what reason.
Where the hell? Oh, yeah, that's a center. Gafford then, right there after Zubats.
There was actually 3 in a row, then Sarr and Portis, who they list as power forward. So, yeah, that's where the centers are going.
I don't want to talk about my Bobby Portis situation. I don't know what I was doing there. What the hell were we talking about? Round 7.
Yep.
Yes,
okay.
we will. Oh yeah, what do you think about Mark Williams? Is he going to stay upright this year?
Who knows, Dan? Like this, like we can sit here and say, well, he was injured last season. I can say that he was. That's cool. Do I know that this is carrying on? Is there any reason for me to suspect that it's carrying on? No, not really. Also, that team was playing a little bit, fast and loose with some of the injury reporting and the maybe not bringing guys back on time, and they've got a new front office and new coach. I just find it really unlikely that that's going to be repeated. It would be just catastrophic that would happen, and I just don't see why it would. And they didn't take a center at pick number 6 when they could have taken Donovan Clingan, and that makes me suggest that maybe they got a little bit of faith in what Mark Williams is doing.
They looked pretty good when he was on his feet, although it only lasted for 5 weeks. Bradley Beal, I went Beal first pick of the 7th round. You went Giddey in the 3rd pick of the 7th round. You know me, I'm not a big Giddey guy. I know I was watching your show and you were talking about everybody like points to the rankings. If we ignore that for a moment, For me, that my issue with Giddey is that he's really kind of a 3-trick pony right now, and I feel like I need one more trick for the pony. I don't.
What if I told you Danny shot like 82% from the free throw line last year?
That would be much better.
I think he shot 8. I think it was 82, 81. Anyway, I know it was good, and I didn't know that it was necessarily good. When you just think about it, you go, yeah, you're right. He's points, rebounds, assists, and he sucks at percentages, but that's actually not true. And it's just one of those things that sort of slid through, and he's made. Let me double check. 80.6. Yeah, 80.6% he shot, and he went from 71 to 73 to 80.1. Now, I don't know if he's going to be an 80% shooter, but that's a really solid, steady improvement. And his field goals were at 48. Again, that's totally fine. So I think we get this idea that he's coming in there with a 43 from the field and 68 from the line, and he's not. Like, he's 48 and 80, which, as you're well aware, Dan, are the actual bang on perfect roto percentages. Like, absolutely, that is the roto. If you get 50 and 81 in your percentages in roto, you're sitting like at 9 points at least, probably 10. Like, you're sitting pretty good. Like, that is bang on, but nobody thinks of Giddey that way.
Yeah, the free throw jump was definitely one that slid under the radar. I think he's been around 47, 48 from the field a couple of years, right?
Yeah, 2 years in a row, yeah.
How high can he go like Chicago's pretty weird.
They're so stupid. This is my concern with him is like, and I've got the same concern with Kobe White. Is like, there's a lot of guys there. Like, they're bad, but there's a lot of guys. So there's Kobe White, there's Josh Giddey. We do have Zach LaVine allegedly returning. What if Lonzo Ball plays 20 minutes on the Jonathan Isaac plan of one game every week or whatever? I would assume he was playing 38 minutes a night at the end of last season. So it's easy to say, well, DeMar's gone and Caruso's gone. It's true, but Giddey's in and LaVine is back. So those two things cancel out, I guess. So that's, I guess, the concern. But they have made pains, the Bulls, to say or to leak or whatever, that Josh Giddey is their point guard of the future. That is the return they got for Caruso. They are building around him. So I'm going to guess he's going to play 30 minutes and he's going to have the ball in his hands, which is not a great sign for someone like Kobe White.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Bulls are one of the teams I haven't done my season preview on yet, and I'm not looking forward to it at all.
It's just so much unresolved garbage. Like, is LaVine playing? Is Vooch playing? Like, I don't know.
Please
are they moving on?
Please move them and get this damn thing over with. The Bulls. Jakob Poeltl for you in the 8th. Jonathan Kuminga, which apparently was just me trolling you without realizing I was trolling you. I don't even like Jonathan Kuminga. Everybody listens to my show knows he's not a guy.
Neither do I.
Roto. I took him head-to-head because I figured he could score, get some boards. He's not a great defensive stats guy. I mean, he's fine. He's not terrible, but he's not great there. And I did it. And then I did like a poor version of that 2 rounds later that I can't fully explain. I'm going to start to mush some of these groupings together because I don't want this thing to take up too much of your morning. Poeltl for you feels very like safe, reasonable. You've needed a big man here. We're approaching 100. Like, I don't see anything wrong. I actually love your center you got coming back in the next round.
Yeah, look, you're right. I just had to get a center, right? And we obviously saw that sort of, well, after Nurkic, that kicked off the run. I just needed to get somebody because I didn't have enough centers on my team, and I didn't want to be left, holding my deck, not knowing what I was doing in that position. But Poeltl is fine. Does he play 26 minutes a night again? I don't know. But if he does, I think he's all right here. And if he plays more, then again, I'm feeling all right with it.
Yeah, you got another Hartenstein on your hands.
Yeah.
What do you think about Kuminga there? Because I don't know. I did it, and then I was like, yeah, all right, whatever. Like,
and you know what I think about Kuminga there is I wanted him. I was going to take him potentially that Poeltl pick. Otherwise, I was going to get him on the way back around. And I also do not like Jonathan Kuminga necessarily for fantasy. But Dan, we talk about the Bulls being weird. The Warriors are equally as weird. They got a bunch of good players in who cannot create their own shots. There is one person on this team who can create his own shot that is not named Steph Curry. And unfortunately, it's Jonathan Kuminga. They also might play him 28 minutes off the bench. I don't know how this lineup's going to work, right? But if he plays 31 or 33 minutes, he's going to be, I'm guessing, second on this team in usage. He might average 20 points a game with 7 rebounds. I don't know. Basketball's a game where no matter how bad your team is, right? The ball still goes back and forward 100 times a game, 100 sessions, 110 possessions, and somebody has to take a shot, and somebody has to get a rebound, and somebody has to score. Shout out to Cam Thomas. Like, somebody is going to put up a shot, and somebody is going to get points. It's not like playing football. And if you're a bad team, well, you just get, the quarterback will be intercepted every play. You'll get stuffed for 0 yards, and the other team drops 50-0 on you. That's not how it works in basketball. Like, somebody has to take the shots, and I don't know who else it is on that team.
I happen to love both of our centers in the 9th round. I don't know if we need to spend a ton of time on it. I got Valanciunas. You got Zubats 2 picks later. We just give 4 thumbs up and go to the next one.
Yeah, I'm pretty good with that.
Yep, I'm good with that too. 10th round was a wacky one. You went RJ Barrett. I went Bobby Portis. I immediately regretted it. I don't know what the hell I was doing here. I feel like this was I thought I had a more beat up, brittle team. And then that was I should take somebody who's probably just going to be there for 75 games. Because that's what Bobby Portis is. He will be there for 75 games. And if Giannis sits, great. Or if Brook Lopez sits, great. But that's the kind of guy I usually keep on my bench in a games cap league. And I just plop him in when a starter's out. Not a guy that I want to play every day. And this is a head-to-head unlimited mock. So I don't know. I peed myself. RJ Barrett, that surprised me. And you're not the first person that said it, because I think Dan Titus came on and was just like, I don't hate RJ Barrett anymore. I haven't softened my stance just yet. Is it I know we saw a nice percentages jump for him during his brief time in Toronto. What was the thinking on RJ here?
The thing is, Dan, is that yes, his field goal percentage. Well, he didn't percentage jump. His free throw percentage fell off a cliff. I don't know what happened with that, right?
But field goal bump.
Yeah, field goal bumped up. And usually when we're talking small samples, I'll look at this and go, look, this can't hold. It can't stick. These are hot streaks. They're not real, right? But the way that Barrett did this was he said, I'm just not taking mid-ranges anymore. I'm cutting down on taking threes, and I'm just going to get to the rim, and I'm just going to shoot at the rim. So that is 100% sustainable, I believe. If you take away the bad, low percentage shots and you take more of the high percentage shots, well, I feel better that your field goal percentage will stay higher, which then leads to more scoring and not a drain on field goal percentage. In New York, he was taking these long twos and he was taking threes and hitting them at 34%, which killed it, right? It made him shoot a bad percentage. But in Toronto, he didn't do any of that. That all disappeared. It was all backdoor cuts. It was all finishing at the rim. And his field goals went up and it sustained up, and that style of play stayed there. And it happened in the Olympics as well. And I just think that, did something click? Was it the coaching that said, just do something different? Maybe. But that's my confidence there, is that that it wasn't just a hot run of shooting. It was a complete change of game style.
I'm going to clump your whatever last 4 together, because I'm starting to feel bad about how much of your day I'm taking. Trace Jackson Davis in the 11th, Malik Monk in the 12th, Carlo Matkovic in the 13th, and big Andre Drummond in the 14th, who, by the way, was going to be my Mr. Irrelevant pick if you didn't take him 2 spots later. I guess, I don't know. The floor is yours. Tell me about your 4 flyer picks towards the end of the draft here.
I don't really think Monk's much of a flyer. I think he's just fine in that area. We'll see what they do with him. And there are some Kings people who think he might start. I don't think so, but yeah, he did take somewhat of a discount to return. So I don't know, whatever. I think that's totally fine. Jackson Davis was just if he starts and plays 25, he'll beat this. But I'm in my bench now, and if he comes off the bench and plays 18, well, you know what? I'll just move on. All good. The Matkovic one, I would probably, it's got a 2% chance of hitting, right? I don't really think it's going to hit. But like I said with the Harris one, I just wanted to put it out there that you need to have this guy on your radar. So I'm going to pick him here just so I can tell you that I've picked him and explain why I've picked him. Because their starting center situation is what is happening? It's Daniel Tice, it's Yves Missy, or it's Carlo Matkovic. And honestly, when I watch Matkovic play in Summer League, he's pretty good. He was definitely better than Missy. He can shoot a bit. He rebounds. He defends. He's got attitude. I'm not saying he's going to play 30 minutes a night or anything like that. And it's probably going to be a weird rotation there. But on the off chance that he actually finds his way into that rotation, there's just a few little flashes there. And it was mainly just me saying, just keep an eye on this guy's name, who probably isn't available to pick up on ESPN anyway. But just keep an eye on this guy's name and just watch that one. And then my last pick was Drummond, which obviously that's for Embiid injury risk. In the end, I was debating that, do I take Drummond here and in the end, I probably should have just taken Andrew Wiggins because he somehow went undrafted, and I don't like Andrew Wiggins, but I probably should have just grabbed Wiggins there. But I just thought, let's see what Drummond does, and if Embiid misses 40 games, well, that's a 7-round jump, maybe more. I don't know. It's a big jump if Embiid misses a ton of time, but if Embiid is healthy, then it's he plays 14 minutes a night because he never plays next to him.
Yeah, that's another one where oh man, the games cap is such a
difference.
beautiful weapon. Like to have Drummond on your bench and just not have to use him until the weeks that Embiid is out. What
Absolutely.
incredible! It brings back the handcuff. Do we want that? I know Dane Titus or no,
No.
Karen put out an article on that, right? On handcuffs.
This is what I have been saying, Dan, for a while. Is that the fantasy basketball rosters are too small. They're too small because we run 10 and 3 as starters bench, but in a daily changes league, they're all starters, right? You have no bench. Like you don't get an opportunity to sit these guys in a head-to-head format. It's all starters. There's 570 players or whatever in the NBA. We roster 156 of them, which is less than the third. It's like 25% of the league is on a roster. And so much of it comes down to like who's going to churn the schedule. I'm going to just who's going to the quickest here to grab this guy. There's no sort of forward planning or ability to have like foresight planning with any of this stuff, because if you don't have someone active right now doing something, you can't hold them.
You're going to lose.
And you've got no hope. Like if you're not getting something, because the other people will, and they'll max out games and they'll get all of their guys turning over big numbers. Like it's a standard thing in fantasy football. You have like 6 running backs and you start 2 each week and you go, well, I've got this guy sitting here. We'll see what happens. Impossible. You can't do it in basketball unless you're playing a games cap situation, because I know you have a bench, but you don't have a bench. You've got no bench. Everyone's active all the time.
I am very excited, by the way. I'm hoping that the Games Cap League that you run is at a time. I think last year I was at my kids' Little League practice or something like that. I really want to get into that and try it out on the head-to-head side, because it's one of the main reasons that I play Roto is the Games Cap. I think you'll be safe. But I hate it.
I actually ran 61 of those leagues last year, so I reckon we'll be able to get you a spot in. Okay. I reckon we'll find a spot there for you somewhere.
There were 61 leagues.
There was the one league, the industry pickup one that I did with all of the analysts. But then there was this. I did 60 of them just with people who wanted to play fantasy with the grand championship at the end. I thought it worked really well, and we'll get you a spot in that.
Yeah, the pickup one was the one that I was like, God damn it, because that is the format. I do shows every March on streaming, and I get to the end of each show, and I'm just like, that was annoying. I wish I didn't have to do that. But so they change it. We kind of have no choice. Like people are going to be churning rosters.
I don't think that I at the end of the 22-23 season, right? I was like, I think we need to really look at like how this is all set up, because I think there are some really clear holes, and I spent a bit of time doing it. Talked about it in that April 23 period and said, look, I think I've got this idea is what we're going to do. Introduced it last season, and I'm not going to say that I solved the problem.
You're not going to roll out the mission accomplished banner.
But ladies and gentlemen, like we got him. Like I think I did. It's not solved completely, right?
But that's so much better, though.
I also think it sort of is. Like I think it cut out. And I think the major complaints were people being like, but I can't do what I used to do. Like, yeah, it's a point.
Yeah,
that's the point. Like I wanted to eliminate those things which I didn't think created the best environment. So there are always little nitpick things there and all across it. But I do think that way was getting it adopted mainstream would probably take 30 years if it even ever happens. But I do think that was the absolute best way to do it.
Yeah, I'm on board. I'm on board. I love me some damn games cap. I love having guys you can just plop in like a Bobby Portis when the starter's out, or like an Andre Drummond when a starter's out. Bring back the handcuff, ladies and gentlemen. Josh, I've taken up way too much of your day, but I am extraordinarily grateful. I forgot to say it in the middle of the show, and I forgot to offer it up in the middle of the show because we were just rolling. But promo time, Red Rock _bball. What you got going on these days besides like 9 shows a day?
I don't know about 9, but yeah, there's a lot happening. We've got team previews still running with the beat reporters, just to get that team-based ideas. People will say, they'll talk and they'll say, yeah, but this guy's so biased. It's really important to get biased views as well as haters' views on this sort of stuff, because invariably, Dan, there's going to be someone in your league or another analyst or someone you talk to who has a view like that, who has a biased view of a play. If you don't know that these sort of exists or ideas exist, then working trades or waiver pickups, it becomes harder. Like you've got to sort of know the middle point, but the 90% best, the 90% worst. You got to know where. So people think that this guy is going to be awesome. Well, there'll be someone around in your league who thinks that, and if there's someone who doesn't believe in this guy, there'll be someone who thinks that as well. So there's a lot of value in just understanding the way that different opinions are formed on players, rotations, coaches, teams, whatever it is. And that's what we're doing at the moment. And Basketball Monster opens next week as well. I should have said that off the top. We are opening, I don't know which day, buddy, the 20th, I think it is. So it's like Tuesday. I think it is next week we're opening.
Yes, sir. Smitty was on earlier this week. He said the tiers are coming in that time frame as well, I think, right? Am I remembering that right?
Dan, whenever we're talking about tiers and coming, I can't I'm not going to lie. That brings back a lot of good memories. But yeah, I think
didn't I make a dirty sock joke on your show like 2 years ago, and you were just like, "Oh, Dan's gross."
Maybe, but it's quite possible, Dan. But you know what? The amount of dirty stuff that happens on my show, it'll sort of blends.
Nobody knows that I'm a sick, disgusting individual off air because I try to do all my shows like I'm still a baseball play-by-play broadcaster. But
the amount of times that Dan calls me the C word off air is like crazy. It's like wow. It's like, Dan, I thought I was bad. Like, settle down, big fella.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I got a reputation to uphold here. He is Josh Lloyd. He is RedRock_bball on social. He is Locked On Fantasy Basketball. He is Basketball Monster, and he is my friend. Josh, thank you so much for coming on. Next time we have a board reshuffle, I'll get you back on, and we'll go through some of that.
No worries, Dano.
I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I know I certainly did. The great Josh Lloyd, ladies and gentlemen. We went through our teams, ended up floating into some other teams as well. Strategies on Giannis, on free throws, on team build, on centers, where they're going, and all of this very early industry mock that Josh was organizing yesterday. That would be Thursday. Take a moment once again to follow Josh on Twitter at RedRock_bball. Of course, you know his work from Basketball Monster and Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Dan Vespers and at Old Man Squad. And do, as we sort of segue into the closing portions of today's show, please do again take a moment to hit that like button, subscribe, rate, review. All that stuff remains extraordinarily important while we're getting this thing off the floor here. We're getting the Old Man Squad network up off the mat. Also wanted to mention that because this podcast is, no matter how you're taking it in, YouTube, audio only, whatever, this is a recorded show. We did not go live. If you have comments, thoughts, whatever, feel free to throw them in the comments section on the YouTube feed. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. I get little email alerts most of the time when those pop up, and I'll get back to them at some point in the not too distant future. I think it's cool to have a discussion on a lot of this stuff. If you like my team, hate my team, Josh's team, whatever, same deal. Get in there. I can always try to tag him if you guys have a question for Josh about his team or something we covered on today's show as well. So all of that stuff remains very much on the table. Now, I think we can get into what's coming up on the show. So this finishes up what ended up being, I believe, a 9-show week, which is really awesome. Monday through Friday, we did 2 shows every day, except I believe Tuesday, we only had 1. Over the weekend, my goal is to get you 1 show tomorrow on Saturday, 1 show again on Sunday. I'm hoping at least one of those is a team preview, or we're going to suddenly start to run low on time for those because I just look, honestly, now that we have fantasy, like legit fantasy board stuff to talk about, I'm not quite as compelled to go through and do those last previews, but a few of these teams are of critical importance, like the Chicago Bulls. They came up here on this show with Josh, and I hadn't put all my thoughts down in one place. Sometimes doing those team preview shows really kind of locks my brain in on how I feel about teams. A team like the Toronto Raptors, we haven't done the Atlantic on the show yet. My thoughts on the Celtics coming off the title run. We haven't done the Sixers with their new look. There's some really important teams we haven't covered yet. The Knicks, the Nets going the wrong way. Who's the last team in the Central that we haven't done? Is the Bulls and the Boops. Is that a team? The Boops? Who are the Boops? What am I forgetting? This is upsetting. Central Division. Pacers! Sorry, Pacers. We've talked about Halliburton so much that I feel like I did the Pacers, but there's other dudes on that team, and we need to talk about them as well. So we've got 7 really important teams that we haven't covered yet. I was saving them because a lot of them were harder and there were more work. And then leagues open, and I was like, well, maybe we don't need to do those. But no, we're gonna do those. So I'll try to get you 1, maybe 2 of those over the weekend. We'll segue back into the new Yahoo board when that drops. Whenever that drops, we'll get a show going on that front. But we are very much in the thick of it now. We are. I'm gonna try to get you at least 1 show every single day between now and basically like early November, which I realize is stupid for my mental health and family health. But that's the plan. That might not be a forever thing either. Really, like, just be straight with all of you guys. Starting a new feed, a new podcast, a new network, all this stuff, it's a heavy lift. It really is. And I'm also fully aware that getting claws in is probably the most important thing I can do. So that's why you're going to get inundated with content. Feel free to skip shows you don't like. I won't be offended. But again, do leave some thoughts on this one in the YouTube feed. If you want to hit again on Twitter, at Dan Vespers or at Old Man Squad, I'll get back to you guys over there as well. Like, rate, subscribe, and have a wonderful rest of your Friday. We'll see you probably tomorrow. So long for now. Oh, and thanks again to Josh.